that body size is mercurial. And so growing up to have a different shape from our childhood body becomes a personal failing. It makes our bodies alien, unruly, the enemy. Complimenting a thin child also reinforces the idea that thin bodies are better than fat bodies. And this was what kept me from saying more in the moment to Barbara, because that belief is planted deep in our collective psyche. We want our children to love their bodies. We don't want them to diet or develop eating disorders. And yet, once they're past toddlerhood or sometimes even before, we also want them to be thin. I could probably explain to Barbara why it wasn't good for Violet to receive excessive praise about her appearance, why it might reduce her understanding of her worth to how she looked. I could articulate why I want my child to think bigger and live larger than that. But it would be much harder to explain why I just as fervently want Beatrix to love her thighs, should they stay squishy past early childhood. Or how damaging it is for kids of all sizes to know that grown-ups think this way about bodies. Or why Barbara shouldn't have to hate her own legs. Unlearning this core belief about the importance of thinness means deciding that thin bodies and fat bodies have equal value. To do this, you have to know that humans have always come in a variety of sizes, that body diversity is both beautiful and necessary. You have to believe that being fat isn't a bad thing. And that means you have to challenge a lot of what you thought you knew about health, beauty, and morality. The wrong epidemic. What most of us think we know is that thin bodies are not only healthier, but also more attractive and more virtuous than fat ones. And because we've tangled health, beauty, and morality all together in this way, preventing or reversing fatness has become our culture's passion project, our spiritual calling, and our most popular national pastime. Our global weight management market, on track to be worth over $298 billion by 2030, thrives on our surety that we don't want to be fat and we don't want our children to be fat. Our healthcare system makes preventing and correcting fatness its primary means of managing health. Our schools teach kids how to read food labels in first grade and to count calories by middle school so they can write their own diets in high school. And on social media, influencers post before and after photos so we can celebrate how much prettier a small, taut body is than a soft, round one. All of this is anti-fat bias, the hatred of fatness that results in the stigmatization of fat people in almost every realm of society. Research shows that 4 out of 5 Americans hold some level of anti-fat bias, and that our implicit dislike of fatness is increasing, even as our other biases hold steady or decline. Activists also use the terms fat phobia and anti-fatness, and you'll hear me use these interchangeably throughout the book with a slight preference for anti-fat bias because, as fat activist and author Aubrey Gordon writes, oppressive behavior isn't the same as a phobia. Phobias are real mental illnesses, and conflating them with oppressive attitudes and behaviors invites greater misunderstanding of mental illnesses and the people who have them. I agree with Gordon, but still use fat phobia because I appreciate that phobia also means fear. And in talking to parents especially, I think it's important to name how much fear and fear-mongering about our children's health, well-being, and future success drives this conversation. As we'll see, it's very often a manufactured anxiety taught to us by biased institutions and systems. But parents experience their fat phobia as a kind of terror nonetheless, because anti-fatness goes well beyond an aesthetic bias. We see staying thin, especially if you do it via a plant-based, locally sourced whole foods diet, as the same kind of virtuous, socially responsible act as limiting your child's screen time or saving for college. We arrived at this intersection thanks to decades of public health policies, diet culture messaging, food advertising, and other forms of public discourse that are all rooted in this same bias, that thin is better than fat. I'll trace the history of this belief system in chapters 1 and 2, but what's important to understand now is that there is a chicken and egg style conundrum underpinning every part of it. We don't have concrete data showing that a high body weight causes health problems like diabetes, heart disease, and asthma. This is, at best, a correlating relationship. And even when weight does appear to be a root cause of disease, there isn't much we can do about it because we have even less data to show that changing how you eat or exercise will change your weight in any